Welcome back to the KingCast, presented by the King Economics Division of the Social Science Department. I'm your host, Frank Roach. Joining today, as always, my great team, Jake Murphy, Lily Ryan, Nicole Rohr, Jack Zipper on sports, Rahil Jaswal on sports, and our first co-host of the year, Tyler Ferdinand. Welcome to the program, everybody. Great to see you, Tyler. Thank you for joining us today. You're our first co-host, and we really appreciate the support.
Thank you for having me.
On the show today, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin challenges Fed Chair Powell. Georgia certifies the election results. Pfizer files for emergency approval for the vaccine. What did we learn this week? Our guest, Tim Armstrong, and of course, economy and the markets. We start off, as always, with our intrepid reporter and producer, Nicole Rohr. Nicole, we had a little scuffle between Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Fed Chair Powell today, this week, excuse me. Tell me what happened.
Okay, so last week we covered that Jerome Powell's address at the European Central Bank Forum, and we reported that Powell mentioned that the economy is not out of the woods, and he saw the need for more fiscal and monetary policy. That position has come into focus again this week. A rare dispute started brewing between Steven Mnuchin and Jerome Powell about Mnuchin's decision to end several emergency Fed lending programs because the Trump administration believes they are no longer needed to support the economy. This directly contradicts the view that Powell expressed last week. Mnuchin has asked the Fed to return $455 billion in unused funds for the programs that are set to expire on December 31st. These funds were allocated by Congress to help during the pandemic. The return of this money by the Fed would result in the end of several programs to help the financial markets and businesses. Mnuchin is still leaving in place other emergency lending programs to help the commercial paper and money markets, as well as the Paycheck Protection Program, all of which were funded without the CARES Act appropriations from Congress. This has become very controversial, particularly following the election results and the expectation that Joe Biden will be the next president. Some believe Mnuchin's actions are politically motivated and that Trump is trying to make things harder for Biden, assuming he takes over on January 20th. Powell and other Fed governors appear to have been caught by surprise by Mnuchin's actions and have once again expressed that they believe the U.S. is not out of the woods yet, particularly with the virus surging, and that the Fed needs the flexibility to continue to use these programs that are being shut down. However, Mnuchin's view is that following the intent of the law from Congress, which provides for these programs to end on December 31st. He also thinks that the programs have been successful and corporates don't need the money, and there's still $800 million of capacity that the Fed still has if it needs it. Returning the money allows Congress to reallocate the money to where it is now needed. With the number of vaccines coming soon and stability in the financial markets, Mnuchin thinks the end of the crisis is near, and there's no need to continue putting more liquidity in the markets. He believes the funds can be better used elsewhere rather than risking inflation and continuing to drive the stock market higher with these lending programs that have already met their objective. Time will tell whether Mnuchin is right, and hopefully the Fed will not find itself limited in what it can do should it need more tools to manage any ongoing economic disruption.
Nicole, an unusual interaction between those two offices for sure. Politics is involved, there's no doubt about that. And I'm really pleased to see a positive outlook by Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. Although the case increases, the hospitalization increases, the election issues, I'm not so sure he's going to be right on things getting better sooner rather than later. And we can look for a second wave of economic difficulties in Q1, I suspect. A great report as always. Moving on, of course, in politics is still with us. President Trump continues to challenge the election results. Georgia is part of that process. Georgia has certified the elections, and although calling for another recount. Tyler, tell us about what's going on in Georgia in the recount and the certification.
Late afternoon, the Secretary of State of Georgia officially certified the results of the presidential election in Georgia, confirming to the public that Joe Biden has in fact claimed victory in this critical swing state. This came after the conclusion of an official recount on Thursday, where Georgia officials hand-counted ballots in order to eliminate any technological error from when the computers counted the ballots initially. After the official recount, Georgia is reporting that former Vice President Joe Biden received 49.5% of the vote, with President Trump receiving only 49.3% of the vote. This recount confirmed that Biden narrowly won the race by only 12,000 votes out of the more than 5 million total votes cast. The Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, said on Friday that, quote, "I believe that the numbers that we have presented today are correct, and, quote, the numbers reflect the will of the people." With Georgia officially confirming their election for Biden, this would award him Georgia's 16 electoral votes, giving Biden a total of 306 electoral votes, more than the 270 needed to win. Assuming the other results around the country are confirmed by political officials after all recounts and court challenges are finished, Joe Biden would officially be confirmed as presidential-elect of the United States. It will be interesting to see in the coming weeks whether Trump files for another recount of the vote in Georgia, this time by machines rather than a hand-counted one, which took place this week. Trump has until Tuesday to decide if he wants to take this course of action. It will also be fascinating to see if this official recount in Georgia changes Trump's outlook of the election as a whole, in that if he will think about conceding to Joe Biden or if he'll continue his current outlook of contesting the race and bringing evidence of voter fraud to the Supreme Court. So we will certainly see in the coming weeks about how these results and Trump's course of action affects the economy and foreign markets as a whole.
Well done. This is, of course, something that's the consternation of the Democrats. And more Republicans are calling for President Trump and his team to show evidence, right? There's been no real evidence of this voter fraud or this belief that they can overturn the election. And it was supposed to be some of that in Georgia. So we'll see if that's true. The recount may change that, but it seems like the GOP needs to show some proof soon. Great report, Tyler. Thank you for that update. And of course, critically important as we move towards December 14th, which is an important date for the Electoral College. Lily, we're going to bring you in now, talk about, of course, the other critical thing in our life today is COVID everything. Right, we have some optimistic news with respect to vaccines and Pfizer and AstraZeneca. And Pfizer is looking to get something done quickly. Tell us what's going on with Pfizer and emergency declaration.
So Pfizer's partner, BioNTech, has announced that tomorrow they intend to file for emergency use authorization at the FDA, Azar said during the White House Coronavirus Task Force first public meeting in months. We would expect Moderna filing soon also. Pfizer said it expected to submit an application to the FDA within days after a final data analysis found its coronavirus vaccine was highly effective and appeared to be safe. The news came 2 days after Moderna said preliminary phase 3 trial data showed its vaccine was 94.5%. Both vaccines use messenger RNA or mRNA technology. It's a new approach to the vaccines that uses genetic material to provoke an immune response. A safe and effective vaccine is seen by investors and policymakers as a solution to get the global economy back on track after the pandemic wreaked havoc on nearly every country. The coronavirus continues to rapidly spread across the United States, infecting more than 11.53 million Americans and killing at least 250,548, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. At the same meeting, Vice President Mike Pence said that the U.S. could literally be a few short weeks away from vaccine being available to the most vulnerable. While it's true some Americans could get the first doses of the vaccines in about a month, the vaccine will initially be very limited. Azar told CNBC that there will be roughly 40 million doses of vaccine available by the end of this year between the two companies, enough to inoculate about 20 million people.
A great report as always, Lily. Very important for us. Of course, the equity markets around the world love this news. It gives us some hope, right, to get out of these lockdowns, to return to some normalcy. We've been waiting for this vaccine stuff. We shouldn't get our hopes too high, of course, but great news. And hopefully that'll happen and cases will start reversing and hospitalization will start reversing. We hope for the best, of course. All right, great reporting as always on 3 critically important issues that confront the U.S. economy right now. All right, now it's time for a little bit of fun. It's time for
What did we learn this week?
All right, let's talk about what we learned in the classroom this week. Well, I think we're going to put a little pressure on our co-host this week. We're going to start get him out there first. Tyler, tell us what you learned this week.
So this week in my money markets and economics class taught by Mr. Roche, I learned about the different types of debt instruments, including simple loans, discount bonds, coupon bonds, and fixed payment loans. I also learned how to calculate the amount you receive for a bond when taking into account the interest rate. And I'm really enjoying the class so far, and I know it's really going to help me next year as I start my business classes in college.
Well, good. That's really nice of you to say. Just so you know, as of yesterday, interim grades were already in, so there's nothing more I can do for your grade. But I appreciate the shout out, of course. As always, Jack Zipper, what'd you learn this week?
So in biology class, we are doing a write up for our science fair project, and I learned that it is super hard to get primary resources on the topic that you're researching because not many people have researched the topic.
Oh, that's an interesting quandary. Well, you're gonna be the leader there, Jack. Start us off. Well done. All right, Jake, what'd you learn this week?
Ooh, well, today I learned something very interesting. Or not today, but this week I learned something very interesting in my physics class about relative weight. And so let's say that you were in an elevator and the cable snapped and you were falling back down.
Ooh.
It'd actually be 100% exactly the same situation as if you were in space floating around, because in both situations, you're being enacted on by Earth's gravity, which is pulling you closer to it, but you're technically relatively weightless along with everything else around you.
That's very cool. I think apparently if you're going to fall in the elevator, just as about to hit the ground, you're supposed to jump up in the air. So
I can't confirm if that works or not, but
Rahil, what'd you learn this week?
In my math class, I learned how to divide polynomials using long division and synthetic division.
Okay, I have no idea what that means. But all I say when it comes to math is don't forget to carry the one.
Okay.
Wait, we need some shout outs to teachers. Jack, what teacher were you at, Fritzy?
Varghese.
Varghese. And how about you? Oh, Tyler, we already did me. And Jake, what teacher were you talking about?
Mr. Hyatt.
Mr. Hyatt. And Rahil?
Miss Sheehan.
Miss Sheehan, okay. Lily, what'd you learn this week?
So I'm in Mr. Nelson's honors physics class, and this past week we were learning about Newton's laws and two-dimensional velocity.
Okay. Also something I know about. Well, I should go to these classes, actually. You know, we learned these things long ago. If you don't use them, you forget about them. But it's nice to hear them out again. Nicole, what'd you learn this week?
In my AP Lang class taught by Ms. Patton, we learned about NAFRA, which is basically repeating one or two words at the beginning of a sentence over and over again for emphasis. And a good application of this is in the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson repeats the words "he is," I think 13 times in a row and 17 times overall.
Wow, interesting. I never heard of that, but that's very intriguing. I bet you we do that without realizing.
Yeah.
All right, well done, everybody. And that was
What did we learn this week?
And now it's time for King Things. Start us off.
As the 2020 fall season comes to an end, King School Athletics used this time to celebrate and recognize 48 fall senior student athletes on social media this past week. The moment provided a chance to not only honor these Vikings for their tremendous perseverance and hard work this fall, but also applaud them for their contributions to the King Athletics over the past 4 years.
The Health and Wellness Club has asked all students to write gratitude emails to faculty and staff members of their choice. In an email from the club, they say, "Everyone is working extremely hard, and showing your gratitude is a great way to lift the mood during these difficult times, and additionally is a great start to the holidays."
We will take the same measured approach to the winter season as we did in the fall, setting our health and safety policies in accordance with the most current Department of Health guidance and incrementally progressing training protocols as we transition to the new season in a number of indoor sports.
So I'm about to read the winter scheduling plan. From November 16th to 20th, winter sports small group training opportunities will start. From November 24th to the 27th, there will be no athletic activities during the break. From November 30th to December 5th, winter sports small group training opportunities will continue again. On Monday, December 7th, winter sports will officially start. From December 7th to the 19th, winter team training sessions and tryouts begin. On December 20th through January 4th, there will be no activities during the break. And on Tuesday, January 5th, the athletics resume.
An email was sent out on Thursday, November 19th with some music that the choir and band classes have been working on. So be sure to go give that a listen.
Those have been pretty cool. I don't know if anyone's clicked on those links, but they've been pretty good. What they're doing at the PAC in this remote world has been pretty interesting. All right, and that is King Things. Of course, in our great King community, we want to keep in touch with what's going on in this wonderful spot. All right, now it's time for sports with Jack Zipper and Raheel Jaswal.
The Seattle Seahawks beat the Arizona Cardinals 28-21 on Thursday Night Football. This game was massive for division implications as both teams came in with a 6-3 record. The Seahawks defense, who had been struggling up to this point, was big, being able to keep Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals offense in check. The big play came at the end of the game as Seahawks defensive lineman Carlos Dunlap got the game-ending sack on the final possession. Seattle now sits atop the NFC West with a 7-3 record. Now on Monday Night Football, the Rams will try and leapfrog Seattle for first place as they meet Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay rebounded nicely with a win versus Carolina last week as they got smacked by the Saints the previous week. Both teams look to strengthen their grip on a playoff spot as the second half of the season gets into full swing. In MLB, second baseman Robinson Cano has tested positive for PEDs and has been suspended for the entire 2021 season. This is the second time Cano has tested positive, as he was suspended for 80 games in 2018. The 38-year-old will have to forfeit his $24 million salary for this season. Cano's suspension could push the Mets to sign Yankees star DJ LeMahieu. Speaking of DJ, he and the Yankees have started to talk about bringing him back to the Bronx for the next 4 years. DJ has been the heart and soul of the Yankees lineup the last couple of seasons, proving he is more valuable to the team than Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. The Yankees said that bringing back DJ LeMahieu is their number one priority. Now over to Jack about NBA.
Thanks. And free agency has opened, and there is a lot of movement in the NBA. Though the top free agents still remain on the board, there's still a lot of wheelings and dealings. Let's go to LA, where Montrezl Harrell has gone across town and signed with the LA Lakers. Harrell will replace Dwight Howard in the starting rotation, who signed with Philly on a one-year deal. The former Clipper has signed a deal worth up to 2 years, $19 million, with a player option in the second year. The Lakers continue to be adding to their championship-winning squad, with Harrell and acquiring Dennis Schroeder via trade. Going to Brooklyn, where Joe Harris has re-signed with the Brooklyn Nets on a 4-year, $75 million deal. Harris rejoins the Nets after averaging career high in points and shooting 45% from beyond the arc. Harris has become one of the best three-point shooters in the game, and Brooklyn was willing to pay the price to bring him back. Now over to college football, where the Florida State Seminole Clemson Tigers game has been postponed. Florida and Clemson were set to play at noon in Tallahassee. The team's medical personnel could not mutually agree on moving forward with the game, so the game has been postponed. ACC protocols have been maintained, but the medical staff could not agree on playing the game. Trevor Lawrence tweeted about it, saying, "Man, we were ready to play, but he can't change anything. Unfortunately, it will be moved to mid-December, and it will have serious implications for the rest of the ACC schedule."
All right, so some disappointed college fans, obviously. It's been some excitement there, being able to play those games. Anyway, great job with sports, as always, with Jack Zipper and Rick Hill, Josh Wong. Now it's time to welcome our guest for the week. Our guest this week is Mr. Tim Armstrong. He's a king parent of Jack Armstrong, class of 20, former CEO of AOL and Verizon's Oath Media, former president of Google Americas, co-founder of Patch and Associated Content, board member of Booking Group, the world's largest internet travel company, and Wheels Up, the fastest growing private flight company in the world, an avid Boston sports fan, and most importantly, husband of King trustee Nancy Armstrong. Tim, welcome to the program.
Hey, Frank. How you doing? Good to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tim, it's a great thing to do is to come onto the King campus each day as part of the community. It's a beautiful campus. It was made more so this summer and spring by the installation of the new turf field in the middle field. It's the Armstrong King Field. Have you had a chance to come to campus and see the field? Do you like how it developed, how it was installed? And tell us your motivation for support of that wonderful turf field.
Yeah, sure, Frank. So first, I would just say, to start off, we're big believers in investing in people. And so our son, Jack, had a really amazing experience at King. He's now a freshman at Northeastern University. And really, Frank, I'm not just saying this because I'm on your webcast or podcast, but you were a really big reason for that. Jack had, I think, a game-changing life experience with you as his teacher and really kind of spiritual advisor going through school. And he always says that you were his favorite teacher and the person that had the biggest impact. And Nancy and I and our family really want to get behind the schools and the people that help have an impact. And King really is kind of a special school and a special place. So we've driven by, haven't gone on campus, trying to be careful with COVID, but really happy with the progress there. And I know Nancy, as a trustee, really loves spending time with the school and with all the people at the school.
Yeah, it looks great. It's just beautiful. And many of the athletes have been able to use it. Unfortunately, I was stunted a little bit towards the end of the season, but it looks spectacular. Great addition to the field, and we thank you all, of course.
Anytime. We love King.
All right, so I was just wondering, what knowledge did you have on technology going into your journey with AOL, and how did you utilize it to contribute to your success as CEO?
Yeah, I started when I was your age in high school. One of my first kind of internships I got was programming the software language for a hospital outside of Boston, which was trying to figure out how to automate their patient flow system. And I knew a little bit about computers, so they had asked me to go in and try to figure it out. So I basically that was my first kind of introduction to building software that users would use to kind of self put in information. And it was really bad. It was like not well done. But it was kind of an introduction. And then after college, I decided to start a newspaper, and doing the newspaper, we had to figure out how to actually get the newspaper designed. So we bought a Apple Quadra 650 computer and learned how to program the software that would allow us to send the newspaper directly to the printer instead of doing it the old school way. So I started my early career kind of around technology. And then really what happened, I went to work for Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, out in Seattle, and we launched ESPN.com and ABCnews.com and NFL.com. And that was at the beginning of the internet. And I spent all my time, but basically with engineers and with people who were building internet properties then. So I got even further into the technology bent. And I'd say my real learning, deep learning in technology came from working at Google for 10 years. And, being at Google from the early days, and we did a lot. We started with internet search, but by the time I left, we were doing many, many, many different things with many different types of technology. And I worked pretty closely with the product and engineers there. So when I went to become the CEO of AOL, I'm not really an engineer, and I'm not really a true technologist at the core level of an engineer. But I had gotten exposed to it so much that I had a general sense of where things were going and what types of people we needed from a technology standpoint. And I'd say it's almost like learning a foreign language. Once you get to the point where you can kind of dream in that language, and my technology kind of acumen got to the point where I could sort of understand the basics enough to sort of dream about it at night. And that's really kind of some of the journey at AOL started with us trying to do technology a little bit differently than was done on the web.
Out of all your business ventures, which one do you think has given you the best experience to further your career?
It's funny, I don't think anyone would expect me to say this, but the newspaper I started in Boston after college, because, basically we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how newspaper and printing works. We didn't know how to sell advertising. We didn't know how to write editorial. So it was probably the toughest experience, just in terms of having to learn how to do a business from scratch, from zero. And a lot of the basic fundamentals I learned with my co-founder doing the newspaper, still are things that apply today. And, I think sometimes learning, not knowing anything is the best way to approach things that you're really passionate about. And so there's a concept called the beginner's mind, which is, if you're kind of forced to learn things from scratch, it'll stay with you. And that beginner's mind for me on the business side, we made every single mistake you can make. It was like, if it would look like a train wreck if you were from the outside, but from the inside, the amount of learnings we got is we really kind of fundamentally got to understand how a business worked. And I think that was probably the biggest liftoff experience for me, as it gave me self-confidence that if I could do that newspaper from scratch, I could probably do a lot of other things from scratch.
I just want to thank you for coming on the KingCast again. It's really great to have you here. Now, a question that I would have for you is, looking back on the success of your career, what's the best advice that you can give King students who want to pursue sort of a similar career in both technology and business together?
The best advice I got was actually, I don't think it was advice. I think I saw a few things happen. And one thing I'll just tell you, a quick story, was when I was working at Google one day, I had to go meet with Larry and Sergey, the founders of Google, about a topic. And when I went into their office, they had an erector set. And they're like, okay, during this meeting, you're going to help us build this erector set. And so while I was talking about a different subject, we were kind of building this little erector set. And then they had a camera, and they took the camera lens off the camera, and they put the camera upside down on top of the erector set. And then while I was talking, they had all these books. They put the books underneath the camera, and they were like, every 10 seconds while we're talking, just keep turning a page. So I would, while we were talking, turning the page. And, finally I was like, what are we doing here, guys? Why do you have this camera upside down, and why am I turning the page? And they're like, we think we can put all the images in the world online, like make them searchable. And so that was kind of the first day of Google image search. If you've ever used Google image search, basically how it started, and it really started with book search, which is like, could you put every page of every printed book online? But that was a lesson for me without any advice, which was, here are two really successful Stanford PhD, students who were at that time period starting to be really successful. But the bottom line is they were still knowledgeable enough about what they wanted, the vision-wise, what they wanted to do, and other opportunities they saw to spend the time. While we were talking about the big ad business, I was in their office. They used to share an office together, talking about the ad business, but they were so passionate about what they were doing that they were still concerned with building a Erector set, putting the camera upside down and turning the pages. And I think that was, I remember walking out of that room that day thinking, if you really want to be the best in the world at what you do, you have to have that level of drive and passion and creativity. And I think the other piece of advice I got was from Howard Schultz, who's the CEO of Starbucks. When I was taking over AOL, I went on a road show to go visit a bunch of CEOs to get advice from them. And I brought a big strategy deck, and I brought all these financials with me, and I wanted to go through it with Howard, and show him what I was doing strategy wise. And he said, put all those decks away. He said, where's your people plan? And I said, what? He said, where's your people plan? Like, the only thing I want to talk to you about today is your people. Like, what's your strategy for your people? And that was another big lesson that, businesses come down to people and relationships. And I would say those two things about being, a real kind of tinkerer mentality, and knowing your business yourself inside and out, and solving your own problems, which will scale. And the second one is, real focus on people. You're all people make business strategy, people make customer relationships, people make technology, those things. If you want to be a great business leader, you really have to be great with people. And you can be great at a lot of other things, but that's really a core premise. So those are just two examples, one I saw and one I heard, which had a big effect on me.
Thank you so much. That's great. And that's such an interesting point about a people plan. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Tim, thank you for taking the time with us today. If you don't mind, I'll keep you for another couple minutes. What can you tell us about Flowcode?
Yeah, so when I was at Google and then AOL, and then when Verizon bought AOL, one of the things I think for the future is most of the internet today is making people renters, not owners. So if you go to major brands or big influencers, if you look at your favorite influencers and you were to talk to some of you, I know there's a famous influencer family from King, the D'Amelios, is most of those influencers and businesses actually don't own their own customers. They rent them from Instagram and Facebook and Google, from YouTube. And so one of the things I think needs to happen in the next 10 years on the internet is consumers and businesses starting to own their own data. A lot of the value that's been created in the world has been created in 7 or 8 big internet companies where they own all the data, they own all the revenue. And so Flowcode is a business that we started to basically try to unhook the value chain in the marketplace to push value to the outside. Like, I think every consumer in the world should own their own data, and they should get paid for their data. So that's one big thing. The second thing is, if you're a business or an influencer, while it feels like you have access to your audience, if you go to the really big influencers in the world, and we're doing deals with a bunch of them right now, they actually don't know who their consumers are. They know that they have 5 million followers on Instagram or 50 million on TikTok, but they don't actually know who those people are. Facebook and TikTok and Instagram know who those people are. So I think if you went out 5 or 10 years or 15 years, we won't be in a healthy economy unless people are able to directly connect with the things they love and to own the data and connection points between those things. And so Flowcode is, I went over to spend a couple of weeks in China to look at new retail in China. And in China, mobile phones, you as a user on your mobile phone can basically connect to anything and do instant transactions without going through necessarily the really big internet companies. So we have built, Flowcode is QR technology that we put data science and privacy behind. So your phone can let you directly connect to anything in the world. and you as a user get data back about what you're connected to, and the business gets a direct relationship with you. So it really, in some ways, removes the center of the internet and goes back to what the internet was supposed to be, is democratizing one consumer to one, brand connection or influencer connection. And we built it about a year and a half ago. We have about 300,000 people have made Flowcodes. They're in all 50 states and about 50 countries right now, where people are directly connecting with things. And it's early days. We have about 50 people at the company, but I hope someday that the value, you've seen the trillions of dollars that have gone into the internet companies in the middle. I love to see the trillions of dollars go back out to the edges of the marketplace where consumers and businesses get value from directly connecting.
That probably is an easy sell in terms of the idea you mentioned, Tim, about owning your own data and making money off your own data. That would be really groundbreaking for the internet for sure. Yeah. All right, one more question for you, Tim, before I let you go. I share your love for New England sports and New England Patriots in particular.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you, are you secretly rooting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I will tell you this. I am, first and foremost, my allegiance to the Patriots is unstoppable. I will say this. I really respect Tom Brady, his work ethic, and I respect what he's done over the last 20 years. And I think he's been a big part of our family's life, just cheering for him. So it's hard for me not to cheer for Tom at the Buccaneers. So I said, if the Patriots aren't going to make the playoffs, or they have a tough season this year, hopefully they make the playoffs. But, I'd love to see Tom win also. And I know that's not all the Boston fans, love the fact that Tom left, but I got to give him mad respect for the amount of effort and time he put in. So I'm a people first person. I want to see Tom be successful. I love the Patriots, love to see them both be successful, but Patriots first, Tom second.
Okay, that's fair. I'm in line with that as well. And I would just say to Patriots fans, boy, oh boy, it's hard to be mad at Tommy. He gave us 20 years of joy and the best sports in the world. So
really amazing. Amazing 20 years. And thank you for having me on.
Time with us. We took more time than expected today, but thank you so much for joining us. I think the students and the faculty administration will really enjoy the KingCast. And we wish you all the best in the holiday season.
Go King.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye. All right, that was a wonderful session with our guest, Tim Armstrong. Really impressive stuff, an amazing resume, and someone to keep your eye on for the future for sure. All right, now it's time for the economy and markets, where we check in on data and market movements. Why don't we start off with data for the week ending 11/20? Lily, start us off.
On Friday, we have no data.
On Thursday, we have the initial unemployment claims for the week of 11/14, 742,000 versus 711,000 in prior weeks. The November Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index was 44.3 versus 62.7 in October. The October existing home sales was 6.85 million units on an annualized basis versus 6.57 million in September.
On Wednesday, we have MBA mortgage applications week ending 11/13 down 0.3% versus down 0.5% in prior week. October housing starts 1.53 million units on an annualized basis versus 1.459 million in September.
For Tuesday, October retail sales up 0.3% versus up 1.6% in September. October capacity utilization 72.8% versus 72% in September. And industrial production up 1.1% versus down 0.4% in September. September net long-term Treasury international capital flows down $79.9 billion.
And on Monday, November Empire State Manufacturing Index 6.3 versus 10.5 in October.
Okay, the highlights for the week were the tick back up initial unemployment claims, right? We went the wrong way there. And then the other thing was housing starts again. Housing remains strong, existing home sales as well. People are leaving cities and buying homes in suburbia, and so that remains a main feature. Okay, let's go ahead and check this week for data. Of course, it's a holiday shortened week, so we won't have too much at the end of the week. Start us off, RJ.
No, there was no data for Monday.
On Tuesday, we have the November consumer confidence, the October durable goods orders, the quarter 3 GDP, and the October international trades in goods, as well as the November Michigan consumer sentiment and the October new home sales.
On Wednesday, we have MBA mortgage applications week ending 11/13.
On Thursday, it's Thanksgiving, so we have no data.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
And on Friday, we have no data.
Yeah, extended holiday week, and so no data on Friday as well. Now it's time for checking the markets. When we check data, we have to know how markets react to data, and so we're going to check for data. It's week over week, right? This is as of 11/20. Jake, start us off.
S&P 500, 3,565, down 20 points.
NASDAQ 11,885, up 56 points.
3-month Treasury 0.66%, down 2.5 basis points.
10-year Treasury 0.829%, down 6.9 basis points.
30-year Treasury 1.532%, down 11.6 basis points.
Euro dollar 1.186, up 30 pips.
Dollar yen 103.81, down 89 pips.
Sterling 1.3290, up 100 pips.
Dollar CAD 1.3090, down 40 pips.
West Texas Intermediate $42.17, up $2.05.
Brent $45.06, up $2.28.
Gasoline $1.18, down 5 cents.
Gold $1,871.50, down $16.50.
Jack, I love that quick rounding. Well done on the gasoline. I like that. All right, remember, you got to check our markets. You got to check our data. This is a data thing. If you're a trader or investor, this is critically important. You need to know those correlations and those directions. All right, let's finish up the show with our friendly reminders. Start us off, Lily.
Do your reading.
Do your homework.
Come to class prepared.
Use your blinker when making turns or switching lanes.
Stop signs mean stop.
No texting while driving.
That is it for us. Thank you to our great team, Jake, Lily, Nicole, Raheel, our co-host, our first one, Tyler. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Jack Zipper. Join us again next week. Tell your friends and family. Listen to KingCast at kingschoolct.org. Campus Sled page. We'd love to have your clicks. That's it for us. Happy holidays. We are out of here.